Donald Trump is publicly lashing out after his latest attempt to use government power against media networks he doesn't like was revealed humiliatingly to be a witch hunt, and yet he's still calling for the network in question to be shut down and for people to be fired. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, this is a follow-up video to a story we've discussed a few times, which is that Donald Trump's allies at the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, have been attempting to investigate CBS at the behest of Donald Trump, whom he repeatedly threatened during the campaign and after his election. And his top MAGA-appointed chairman at the FCC, Brendan Carr, has done Trump's bidding, and yet the whole thing was revealed to be a total baseless witch hunt. We'll get into that in just a second, but I first want to give you Trump's reaction. This is what Trump said this morning. CBS and 60 Minutes defrauded the public by doing something which has never to this extent been seen before. They 100% removed Kamala's horrible election-changing answers to questions and replaced them with a completely different and far better answers. Again, total bullshit. He's lying out of his ass, but he can't cope with the fact that his witch hunt was baseless. And replace them with completely different and far better answers, taken from another part of the interview. This was election-changing stuff, election interference, and quite simply, election fraud at a level never seen before. CBS should lose its license, and the cheaters at 60 Minutes should all be thrown out, fired, and the disreputable news show should be immediately terminated. Let's be very clear about that. Donald Trump, the leader of the so-called free speech, free press, free expression party, is once again calling for cancel culture. And he's not just a candidate. He's not just a political leader. He is the sitting president of the United States. We have never seen anything like this before, never from any Democrat. Let's continue. With the Democrat scandal that just arose with respect to USAID illegally paying large sums of money to Politico and other media outlets, the question he screwed it up and I assume he meant must be asked, was CBS paid for committing fraud? Many other questions to come. This will go down as the biggest broadcasting scandal in history. So he's lying about the USAID thing and the Politico funding. We'll talk about that probably in a separate video. But what I really want to double down on now is, again, as a follow-up, this FCC investigation into 60 Minutes and CBS. So Brian Stelter of CNN has a write-up of the latest developments. The FCC just published CBS's raw Kamala Harris 60 Minutes interview. A newly released transcript of a contested interview with former Vice President Kamala Harris refutes Donald Trump's assertions that CBS committed election interference last October. Let's see. The Harris interview led Trump to sue CBS, and a pro-Trump advocacy group filed a formal complaint with the FCC, the federal agency that licenses local TV stations. CBS had, until recently, refused to publish the full transcript of the Harris interview, creating an information vacuum that helped conspiracy theories flourish. But the network handed over the transcripts and tapes for an FCC inquiry, and on Wednesday, the agency released the materials, citing, quote, the value of transparency and the public interest here. The transcript confirms that what CBS said, that it engaged in normal editing, not any nefarious activity like Trump alleged. Instead of saying case closed, though, FCC Chair Brendan Carr is opening up the matter to public comment and extending the case for at least another 6 weeks. Critics continue to charge that Carr is weaponizing the historically independent FCC to advance Trump's anti-media agenda. Those critics now include one of the Democrats on the commission, Anna M. Gomez, who says, quote, the FCC should now move to dismiss the fishing expedition to avoid further politicizing our enforcement actions. Source of the controversy? Last fall, 60 Minutes, the highest-rated news magazine in America, sought to interview both Trump and Harris for a special pre-election program. Harris agreed. Trump declined. Correspondent Bill Whitaker pressed then-Vice President Harris on the Biden administration's relationship with Israel amid the war in Gaza. Whitaker asked why Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was, quote, not listening to the United States, and Harris answered by defending the administration. It was not a particularly newsworthy exchange, but CBS aired 2 different parts of Harris's answer on different broadcasts. In a preview clip that aired on Face the Nation, Harris was shown saying, quote, the work that we have done resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region. During the actual 60 Minutes program, in response to the same question, she was shown saying, quote, we are not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end. As criticism mounted and Trump threatened to sue, CBS said it merely edited for time in accordance with television news standards. But CBS essentially asked the public to take the network's word for it, refusing to share the full transcript. On the campaign trail, Trump attacked the network repeatedly, charging, quote, they took the answer out in its entirety, threw it away, and put another answer in. The transcript confirms that's not true. CBS showed one part of her answer on Sunday and the other part of her answer on Monday. Trump also called the controversy the greatest fraud in broadcast history and said CBS should lose its license. The transcript does not indicate any fraudulent behavior by CBS. I'm just trying to think how much here. Okay, yeah, we'll finish this. The FCC fallout. Shortly before Election Day, Trump sued CBS in federal court, alleging that the interview was deceptively doctored. Legal experts said the suit was frivolous, and CBS said, we will vigorously defend against it. But the suit became a problem for the news division's parent company, Paramount Global, once Trump won the election. Paramount is awaiting government approval of its pending merger with Skydance Media. Outside analysts, citing Trump's transactional nature, predicted that Paramount may have a hard time getting the necessary federal approvals. Last week, the New York Times reported that Paramount is now trying to settle the suit, despite having a strong legal case. The complaint to the FCC moved along a parallel track. The Center for American Rights alleged that 60 Minutes violated the FCC's news distortion policy. According to the agency's website, news distortion must involve a significant event, not a minor part of a news report, and must require proof that a broadcaster, quote, deliberately distorted a factual news report. Carr's predecessor atop the FCC, Jessica Rosenworcel, probably butchered that last name, a Democrat, dismissed the complaint in one of her last acts as FCC chair. But Carr, who Trump appointed in 2017 and promoted to chair last month, brought it back to life. Carr acknowledged in interviews that the bar for proving news distortion was very high. For instance, it would apply if someone said no in an interview, but a TV station edited the segment to make it appear like the person said yes. But he argued that he had to send a letter to CBS asking for the transcript and tapes from the interview. Quote, I don't see how the FCC can reasonably adjudicate this claim of news distortion without seeing what was actually said, Carr told CNN. Now he has. The material provided by CBS showed debatable but normal editing practices, not deliberate distortion. The network pointed this out in a statement on Wednesday, saying the transcript and video, quote, show, consistent with 60 Minutes' repeated assurances to the public that the 60 Minutes broadcast was not doctored or deceitful. Carr is prolonging the pain for CBS, however, by opening the case up for public comment through March. Gomez called his action unprecedented and reckless, adding, this action sets a dangerous precedent that threatens to undermine trust in the FCC's role as an impartial regulator. Okay, and lastly, Carr also announced probes of NPR, PBS, and a local radio station reportedly broadcast the live locations of undercover ICE agents. So, here's the point. Donald Trump's FCC and his handpicked MAGA-appointed FCC chairman is relentlessly pursuing Trump's agenda to go after media networks that Trump doesn't like. And this whole investigation turned out to be a bogus witch hunt. I mean, even the premise of it is absurd. Donald Trump participates in edited interviews all the time. We covered this in a previous video where Fox got busted for doing the same thing that Trump alleges CBS did. Is Carr investigating Fox for simply editing for, concision? No, of course not. As a matter of fact, the libertarian magazine Reason, which is, I would argue, is very generous to Donald Trump and the right wing, libertarians tend to be right wing, they're even calling him out. How the FCC's warrior for free speech became our censor-in-chief. I mean, again, this is stunning. Even principled right-wing libertarians who are more inclined to side with Trump and Republicans, certainly, than Democrats, are like, this is bullshit. When Trump announced the appointment of Brendan Carr to the top spot of the Federal Communications Commission, he called Carr a warrior for free speech. Carr, in turn, pledged to dismantle the censorship cartel and restore free speech rights for everyday Americans. But Carr's statements and actions both before and since taking on his new role indicate someone all too comfortable wielding government power against media companies for politically disfavored speech. Quote, I think he's the most anti-free speech FCC chair that we've had as long as I can remember, says TechDirt founder Mike Masnick. Quote, and I think that's a little terrifying, especially as he's presented by himself, Donald Trump, and the media as being a free speech warrior. Yet over and over again, we see that he's constantly trying to attack and suppress and punish speech. And I want to get to a specific part in this article. Notably, Rosenworcel, this is the Democratic appointee of President Biden. Actually, let me back this up real quickly, because again, we discussed this, but it's so important. In January 2025, outgoing FCC chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel dismissed all three complaints. Quote, the incoming president has called on the Federal Communications Commissions to revoke licenses for broadcast television stations because he disagrees with their content and coverage, she wrote. Quote, the action we make makes clear two things. First, the FCC should not be the president's speech police. Second, the FCC should not be journalism's censor-in-chief. But days after Carr took charge, the FCC reinstated complaints against ABC, NBC, and CBS, three networks that Trump has specifically, emphatically targeted, noting that each dismissal was, quote, issued prematurely based on an insufficient investigatory record for the station's specific conduct at issue. Notably, the Democrat had also issued a complaint, had also dismissed a complaint from the left-leaning Media and Democracy Project asking the FCC to punish Fox News Channel for airing, quote, knowingly false narratives about the 2020 election by potentially revoking a Philadelphia Fox affiliate's broadcast license. Rosenworcel wrote that the complaint seems to have the FCC remove the license of a television station for the character shortcomings of its corporate ownership and dismissed it at the same time as the other three. So she had a prime opportunity to attack Fox News and punish them. And remember, Fox News settled the defamation case against Dominion Voting Systems back in 2022 or 2023 to the tune of $787 million. That would have effortlessly been a predicate that, yeah, Fox News is uniquely corrupt, uniquely dishonest, and they should be punished. Instead, Biden's Democratic appointees said, no, we can't do this. It would be seen as too censorious, too politicized. But here's the kicker. Under Carr, the agency revived the complaints again against ABC, NBC, and CBS, but left the Fox complaint dismissed. In a statement, the Media and Democracy Project called the act, quote, a form of intimidation and corruption. Reinstating the complaints only against networks Trump finds disfavorable, quote, seems like another example of Carr making decisions and doling out potential punishment based on ideological views and speech. Masnick, the Techdirt founder, says, quote, and that seems very anti-First Amendment and anti-free speech, but certainly part of the pattern of what we've seen from Carr. So folks, let's be clear. This witch hunt was exposed as just that. There was no rational basis for Trump and the FCC to do what they've done. CBS complied because they have long-term business aspirations that they feel that they have to, comply unreasonably with Donald Trump and the FCC. And what was revealed? Not a goddamn thing that merited this level of scrutiny and prosecution. And yet, that's what we're seeing. And Carr still won't let it go. At the same time, he is protecting right-wing media outlets like Fox, which are more favorable to Trump. This is an unprecedented level between this and all of Donald Trump's other comments as the sitting president and as a presidential candidate. This is an unprecedented level of censorship, overt and aggressive politicized censorship. And we're only 3 weeks in. There's no telling where we'll be 3 months from now or 3 years from now under this administration. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.